Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the afternoon series of Tech Talks. CGI is proud to be a sponsor of this series as well. A little bit about CGI. We are a global IT consulting firm with approximately 70,000 plus employees. Our commercial clients span the sectors of banking and financial services, retail and manufacturing, healthcare, and life sciences. In the U.S., our government clients include nearly every cabinet-level federal agency, all 4 military branches, and the majority of U.S. states. We've been part of the Pittsburgh market for some 30 years, providing services to some of the largest financial, healthcare, manufacturing, and government entities. We are proud to be a part of the local community and further enhance our presence with the merger of Summa Technologies. CGI's merger with Summa strengthens our capabilities for clients in the region. With almost 400 resources in the area, we invite you to get to know us at cgi.com. And at this time, I'd like to introduce John Nauer, Senior Vice President of Product and Strategy for Nielsen.
Hi, everybody. So for those of you that know me, you may be a little confused as to why I'm standing up here talking for Nielsen. My company was actually acquired by Nielsen in February. So I'm going to be presenting a little bit about what Nielsen as a whole is doing and some of our work that we're doing here based out of our Pittsburgh office. Most of what I'm going to be talking about today is experimental stuff, so just know that if there's any clients in the room, we're not quite releasing what we're showing you quite yet, but you guys are getting a first sort of preview at some of this early research that we're doing. So wanted to just a quick overview for those of you that don't know Nielsen or may not know all about Nielsen. Most people think of Nielsen, you can raise your hands, everyone thinks we're just the TV ratings people, right? Yep, and we are, certainly, but we also we really measure everything, right? And it's all about how consumers are consuming media and also the products they buy and the behaviors that people have so that we can come up with better recommendations for our media clients in terms of how they can better reach consumers and the advertisers that they serve, as well as working with a lot of brands, some of the leading brands all around the world, helping them understand how to market more effectively to their customer bases. So for Ryza, for us as a small Pittsburgh-based company, to be acquired by them was kind of a neat thing. It was like diving from a pretty shallow pool of data that we barely had access to when the big players would give us access to it and do some cool analytics work with it, to now having access to an ocean of data. So we're way beyond data lakes and way beyond any of those little small water analogies. We're talking about oceans of data. And when you have access to all this information, the question is, how do you actually make it useful for people to interact with? And not just the data geeks, right? Not just the database people, which there may be some in the room, and I respect and I consider myself one too. But how do we move beyond data, the conversations around data beyond just the database folks and the IT teams and all the rest, but actually move it into the boardroom, move it into the executive suites and out to salespeople and marketers and all the rest. And Ryza has a long history of doing that, building user interfaces that make it easier for regular people to answer questions that they need from their data. And so what we do, just as a quick overview, because I'm about to get into the cool new Alexa stuff, I promise, voice-activated stuff. But just as a concept, we bring data together from lots of different sources into a central repository. So we take, now we have access to all of the data that Nielsen generates for its customers and our syndicated data sets and all the rest, which is a vast, as I mentioned, volume of data. We also partner with third parties and are able to bring in other commercial data sets that our customers need. For example, we have a great and long-standing partnership with Polk, which gives us access to every car registration in the United States going back many years, down to the dealership that it was bought from and everything about the car and the customer that bought it and all the rest. And we're able to integrate that data with Nielsen data so that we can start to answer complex questions about car buying behavior. So why is it that we might want to do that? Well, 40% of all advertisements bought in the United States are auto ads. Right? Whether it's your local dealership, screaming at you on TV or radio to buy cars, or the big brands nationally. So that's a big area for us. We have many other data sets, the voter registration file and all kinds of other stuff that we bring in through third parties. And then we also take our customers' data. So the ability to integrate in their CRM system or sales systems that they have, all kinds of surveys, third-party market research that they're doing, whatever it might be, we can integrate that data in so that we have a comprehensive central place with used to be one interface, web-based tool for accessing that information. And basically, the goal was to help answer common business questions. And the neat thing about this slide is that every time I do it, I have to find a way to add new icons of things in. And since we've been at Nielsen, it's just grown. The one that isn't here, I don't like to read things off the screen for people, and hopefully you can read it yourself. But basically, one of the areas that we're starting to get into now is helping product development teams within large corporations as they're thinking about launching a new product, understanding the market for that product, understanding the targets of who they're designing it for, and then when they get to the actual execution for purchasing ads and marketing of it out into the world, how is it they can best target those folks that they want to reach with this new product launch. There's hopefully next year, if I get invited back, I'll be able to give you some case studies that we're doing right now for some very big brands that will be kind of exciting around that. But the idea is to understand the market and understand how the behavior of individuals can be affected by different marketing strategies that you might want to undertake. So how does our software work now? And once again, this isn't meant to be a commercial. I'm trying to give you context to build up to what led us to then try to get away from this paradigm. So how it works right now is that we have all these templates, right? And templates are meant to be questions. So in this one, the question is, what are the media consumption habits of my customers? And basically, a customer themselves or one of our account support team folks would go in and basically enter the information, whatever the information is that is the input that is needed for the answer to this question. Okay, so the details of what's on the screen, not that important. There's a form that you fill out. And basically, you then get a beautiful, and we've done this for years, a beautiful data, set of data visualizations that help to answer that question so you can better understand, and get you right to sort of the types of questions. So once again, the exact details of this are not that important, but we've got top TV stations for this target customer, cable networks that they watch, when they watch TV, and then we've got some web and radio and cross media, across all types of media, how are they consuming, which is the question, right, that we asked, and that's great. And this report happens to be across multiple markets, looking at just Ford F-Series trucks, right? People who consume Ford F-Series trucks, what's their media consumption behavior? And our customers have the ability then to just click a button and they can either publish this out as a web presentation that they can then present to others in their company and share with them, or they can actually generate a PowerPoint deck and have that be the takeaway. Almost 80% of our customers generate a PowerPoint deck. That's what they want out of this process, right? So by looking at our own internal data, we were able to look and see what is it that users really want to be doing, or what are they predominantly doing with the tool, right? So then the question, and as I mentioned, we have lots and lots and lots of different types of questions that we can ask of the data. With all of the different types of data now that we get access to from Nielsen, it's just broadened out a lot. It's been really exciting. I'm like a kid in a candy store right now because we have access to just all of this amazing data that is being generated. And you can start to see lots of different types of visualizations looking at nationally, what's the footprint of what we're looking at, regionally, getting down to the local store and looking at where their specific customers are in an area. This is very, very useful for national companies that have lots of local branches, or regional companies that have lots of local branches, for example, for other stores. You can do all kinds of analysis, look at market share, by month, and what websites, apps were used to gather, information to the purchase that just happened or the purchase that they're planning on making. I'm really just flashing a lot of infographics. The idea is that there's a breadth, right, of lots of different types of questions that can be asked of the data, and we have templates, right, that are tuned to answer all of these questions. And I'll get to this one in the live demo. So the goal, right, and what we were noticing is that even though the web interface is really simple, there's no code, there's no, you don't need to know SQL query language, you don't need to, do anything fancy with your queries to get there. The user interface that we created for our users to get in and use it was simple, and it has lots of filtering that takes place in it. So if we look across here, over here we've got these different questions as templates that are listed out. You can filter them by any number of different things here on the left, common business categories or types of queries they are or whatever. But what we were finding, and we had a search function as well that's built into it, but we were finding it was overwhelming to our customer base and our users. And so we wanted to experiment with, pushing this mission mission, and we felt that we were slipping a little bit from our mission. It's easier than any other tool that is out in the marketplace for this type of querying, but it's not easy enough, right? And so the question is, how do we reduce the complexity associated with the querying within this tool? And the idea, we were brainstorming around this, and we have really fun brainstorming meetings at our company and with our customers. And what came out of one of our brainstorm sessions is it possible, and I remember the customer that actually stood up and said this, you keep talking about questions and answers, and you keep talking about how a conversation that happens with the data and storytelling that's as a result of it, yet I still have to sit there and type. Isn't there some way, given all the fancy new stuff, I have Siri on my phone and she can tell me where the nearest pizzeria is, why can't I just ask a question of my data, right, of your system, and get the answer right away? So we thought that's a pretty cool idea, right? And we set up some experiments basically around how we would do this. And as user interface folks and who really think about these things, we were trying to think of what is the actual outcome. And this is something you should definitely think about before launching a B2B, any sort of B2B voice application. What do you want people to get out of it? What do they walk away from the experience of talking to your software, all right, or your data, or whatever it is? And basically, we came up with 2 use cases that we thought we could actually think about. That the output of the system would be the presentation. Remember, over 80% of our customers are actively generating PowerPoint presentations, and they're doing it on the way to sales meetings or marketing meetings or whatever it might be. So could we help make that happen faster? That was use case number 1. Use case number 2 is, is it possible to get these, the conversation that you have with the data to actually speak the answers back to you, and would that be useful? So we decided on, and just in the interest of time and to make sure I can get to my demo, I will forego the deep technical discussion. Happy to answer questions about it, but we chose the Alexa ecosystem to start with. The reason why, quite frankly, is that at the time that we started doing this about a year ago, the Alexa ecosystem was the most open and flexible. So basically, all of the other platforms at the time had restrictions on the types of queries that you could issue into it, the types of web services that you could tap into on the back end to be able to get the answers back and in. And basically, we felt Alexa was the fastest to go to market. If there's anyone here from any of the other teams that have awesome natural language processing voice interaction systems, love to talk to you about how you can help us as well, because we're not wed to any one platform. But Alexa is the one that we chose because of that. And it's been nice because for us, when we launched this, we were actually the first B2B application developed skill, as they're called in Alexa ecosystem, the first B2B application developed. Alexa is a consumer, it's all about being in your home. Right, and most of the virtual assistants right now are being used in the home. And as Jennifer was saying earlier, and we've all experienced, it's good, but it can get frustrating sometimes, right? And I'll talk about that in a second. So what I wanted just to quickly get to, I think I'm going to save this slide. I thought I might run out of time, but I didn't. So I'm going to jump over to a quick demo of what we're doing, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about what we've learned. All right, so let me just flip over to the web here. So this is this is what our customers use and see all the time. I happen to be logged in as a super user, so there's a lot more things on it, but this is the basic system. And what I'm gonna do is generate a presentation, so do that use case number 1 that I was talking about, get to the PowerPoint presentation as quickly as possible. Alexa, open my assistant.
Hello, I'm your Ryza assistant. I can help you make a presentation in Ryza. Just say, make me a report about restaurants, or make me a presentation about radio and car dealers.
Make me a presentation about national auto brands.
I found a report called Top DMAs for Auto Brands, National. View how a specific auto brand performs by DMA, both by raw count and index. Would you like to use that one?
Yes.
Great. I just need to know the make.
Ford.
I set the make to Ford. I have everything I need. Would you like me to create the presentation?
Yes.
I've made your presentation. You can find it in the presentations table in Ryza.
So this is the presentation tables in Risa. There's no presentation there yet about Ford. I'm going to hit refresh. And the presentation that she just made for us is up here at the top. So now I can just click on it and get in there. I can see that it was created by Risa. I'm going to so our system allows you to customize this and do whatever you want. There's always a glitch in every demonstration, so it's now generating and running the data. What it is doing in the background, by the way, is running all the queries, visualizations that we're about to see in real time against the entire corpus of data that we're going against. Normally it happens in seconds, and it's not right now, so that's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to tap dance while this is happening. But so basically, the structure of this, there we go. So basically what we've just done is to look at every single Ford registration that's happened in the past year in the United States. This is the TV market. This is the United States broken out geographically by TV market. And we can see which markets are over here. And the darker the color, basically, the stronger the sales were for Ford. All Fords. We have other templates that could look at Ford F-150s or mid-size pickups or banks that people used or credit cards or healthcare providers or any other type of data that you want to look at. This just happens to be auto. And here in this template, we're looking at another map that is showing us where Ford over-indexes, so where they are most popular. I like this one because it just shows the divide that we have. There's a Ford versus Toyota problem in this country, basically. If you look at how the breakout of where people live and which cars they like the most, you can see it. It goes very evenly with our politics, by the way. Not making any statements about any of the brands, just saying that that is very true. There are correlations there. And then here we're looking at basically a brand index view. So this is looking at each of these dots as a market, and we're looking at which markets they are both have the highest volume over to the right here. So Detroit, no surprise, is where they're the most popular and have the highest volume. But we can see like Dallas-Fort Worth and Houston and Cleveland and Minneapolis and San Antonio are all places where Ford is over-indexing a lot. And we can very quickly now in the tool, without speaking to it, get in and change brands if we wanted to and look and see how Chevy's doing or Subaru or whatever. Okay, that is the first view, and I can click Generate PowerPoint, and in about 10 seconds, the PowerPoint file for this will be downloaded to my computer, and I can take it to my presentation. So if you think about where this is going, right, we're not there yet, and I'll get to that, but a salesperson on the way to a meeting or somebody on the way to their board meeting, if they want to be really risky, can actually, if you are sitting in a car that is Alexa enabled, which some are now, or you're in your house and you want to do it in the morning while you're over your coffee, you can start generating your presentations verbally, and they will be waiting for you basically when you get to the office or when you need to look at them. So that's one example, and I'm going to go probably over time, but just it'll be 30 seconds over, I bet. Let me do the second demo for you, which this is more exploratory. So what we're going to do is be querying against a bunch of different data sets, and I'm actually going to be speaking and asking some questions. This is a marketing use case. Alexa, open my researcher. Alexa, open the researcher.
Hello, I'm a researcher. I can answer lots of marketing questions. What should we talk about? You can say, let's talk about yoga, or my customers are baby boomers.
Let's talk about Walmart.
Great. The topic is Walmart. Now I need to know your target audience. You can tell me by saying, my customers are baby boomers.
My customers are women.
We asked women about clothing stores shopped in the past 3 months and found that the most relevant answer is Walmart. Half of women gave that answer, and answered that way more likely than the general population.
My customers are Hispanic women.
We asked Hispanic women about clothing stores shopped in the past 3 months and found that the most relevant answer is Walmart. A bit less than half of Hispanic women gave that answer, and answered that way a little less likely than the general population.
Let's talk about airlines.
We asked Hispanic women about airlines used in the past 12 months, business, and found that the most relevant answer is none. Most of Hispanic women gave that answer and answered that
Alexa,
way a little
stop.
less likely than the general population.
All right. So she may babble on in a minute. But the point of that was basically, for those of you who are data folks who work with databases, we're searching across trillions of possible answers to these questions. And in milliseconds, coming back with an answer that is the most optimized, relevant answer to the topic that I give it, which can be a company, it could be a concept or a category, it could be anything that is a question or an answer in any of the or in an attribute, basically, of any of the data sets that we have, okay? This is an incredibly broad and incredibly fast sort of infrastructure for asking those types of queries. And what Alexa is doing, and Alexa is actually communicating with our system on the back end, is actually optimizing and across all the possible answers to the question, which ones are the most relevant, right? And so we have a matrix algorithm that we use to do that. That is one of the proprietary things that Risa does on our web interface. And we realized we could expose it to Alexa using natural language processing and actually really speed up the entire experience. One of the bits of feedback that we're getting to this right now is a feature that we need to add, which is make me a presentation. Because, and I'm going to go to my last slide and finish, I promise, to the folks keeping time. Basically, what we've learned from this experience is that there needs to be an artifact of the interaction in a business context. There needs to be some artifact of the interaction so that you can remember what the heck it was that you just learned, right? So a report or a presentation or a web page or whatever it might be. That's a lesson that we've learned from this and something that we definitely want to pass on. If you're using these interfaces in a business context, make sure there's some sort of artifact that your users can look at. Natural language processing isn't quite there yet. It fairly much worked, actually, when I just did it. But for those of us who use Google Home or Alexa or Siri, we all know the frustrations. I was up in front of a very prestigious audience. I specifically wanted to know about craft foods, and I got a bunch of information back about Michael's craft stores, right? It was really embarrassing because I was actually pitching, and that is a bad thing to have happen to you. So this is something that, it's still in early days. It's not quite ready for prime time. You don't want to base your entire business model on it quite yet. And the other thing is that the market wants it. People who deal with data on a daily basis, even the data geeks, right, want easier ways of interacting with that data. They don't want to have to sit there and type SQL queries and all kinds of other junk, basically, just to try to figure out how to get answers. And part of the value proposition that we bring to the table is that you literally have the ocean of data available to you that you can then start querying across. And that's one of our competitive advantages, and I think one of the reasons why we're ahead in the field on this. So I'm going to stop now. I think I'm at time, and I would love to see if there's any questions. We have time for questions. We don't have time for questions.
No, but you can take them. Here.
So I'll take.
You can't do like live.
Okay. So I will take questions. What, I'm supposed to get off the stage?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm being kicked off the stage, which is great. But I will be here, and I will go to the back of the room and happy to answer any questions that people have about this. Thanks.